Diablesse. She's a tall woman, beautiful, impeccably made up. They say she comes all the way up here to Toronto to shop for cosmetics and go back down. And she's always wearing a wide-brimmed straw hat that covers part of her face. And she's always dressed in a long gown right down to the bottom of the ground, covering her toes. You know why she does that, eh? Because the Diablesse has one human foot and one cow foot. Yes, you heard me right. One human foot and one cow foot. And I say if you look at her, she will take your soul like that. Especially young men and middle-aged men. And men not so middle-aged. One night it was raining thunder. And then my friend, this guy decided he's still gonna go out and jog. So he gone jogging through the coconut grove. And he see this woman coming towards him dressed in a wide-brimmed straw hat. Instead of him passing her straight, no, he became Casanova. And he stopped and he looked at her and he said, "It's a lovely night tonight, isn't it?" She looked at him and she smiled and she turned her back and she kept on walking. And all how this fella tried to stop, he just found himself following this woman and he couldn't stop. And what the Diablesse like to do, they like to walk past a cliff. And when they get to the edge of the cliff, they'll walk off the cliff and just keep on walking in midair. And this fella couldn't stop. And when the Diablesse got to the cliff, she walked off. And he walked off too. But he's not a Diablesse. So it's down the rocks he went. And the next morning, whenever they see that, and the island, and they see a fella on the rocks below, they'll say, "Ah, a Diablesse get healed last night." So all the men out there, when you see a woman walking in the night with a wide-brimmed straw hat, pass she straight. Don't even say boo, because she might be a... No, since Diablesse don't have children, they like to take other people's children and bring them up to the mountains, and nobody would know where she's hide these children. So children, when you're going out in the night, make sure your mother and father know where you're going. If you're in a group, stay in your group. If you're afraid to come home, phone your mother and father. They love you. They'll go send a taxi for you. One night it was raining, thunder and lightning. The moon didn't come out that night. And way up in the country where my grandmother lived, her house was surrounded by a lot of mango trees and breadfruit trees. And when you see the rain hit those leaves, it hit the leaves with a noise. And that mixed with all the thunder and the lightning is enough to wake the dead. The only sound you could have heard coming through that noise that night was the sound of a baby crying and the sweet voice of a woman singing. Just coming from inside my grandmother's house, Granny was sitting next to a frightened little baby and rocking the baby to sleep, and she was singing, "Oh no, no, don't cry no more. The thunder is good 'cause it comes from the Lord. Oh no, no, don't cry no more. The lightning is good 'cause it comes from the Lord. Don't cry no more, sleep my little one. Don't cry no more." Oh good, I frightened you, good. Then all of a sudden there's a knock on the door. "Who is it?" Granny asked. "It's just a little lady outside. Is it okay if I shelter the rain on your veranda?" Right away Granny got suspicious, because what a little lady was doing way up by Granny's house in all this thunder and lightning in the middle of the night. But Granny's good heart said, "All right, you could sit on the veranda until the rain eases up. I'm getting more wet outside. Is it okay if I come inside and sit by the door?" Granny said, "All right." Very slowly the door started to open and the woman walked in. She said she was a little lady. The woman was tall like a young coconut tree. And she's wearing a wide-brimmed straw hat that was covering part of her face. It was a face Granny had never seen in the neighborhood before, and she was dressed in a long gown right down to the bottom of the ground, covering her toes, and the bottom of the dress was wet and dirty from the red mud and the rain outside. Granny took a chair and she put it next to the door, and the woman sat down, and Granny went back to the crying little baby, never taking her eyes off the stranger, and Granny kept on singing, "Oh no, no, don't cry no more. The lightning is good 'cause it comes from the Lord. Don't cry. Let me hold the baby for you a little while," the woman said. Granny said, "Thank you, but no thanks, it's quite all right." "Let me hold the baby for you. I'm very good with children." Granny said, I said, thanks, but no thanks. What happened? You're deaf? And right away, Granny started taking precaution because Granny suspected it was a Diablesse. And Granny picked up the baby and she held the baby in her arms. And what the Diablesse like to do, they like to ask the same question 3 times. And for the 3rd time, she said, let me hold the baby for you. I'm very good with children. And Granny said, it's quite all right. The baby's okay in my arms. And all of a sudden, the woman walked over to Granny, looked at the baby, looked at Granny and smiled, and turned her back and walked out the door. And by the time Granny ran to the door to see where that woman was going, she had disappeared like lightning. And the next morning, because of all the rain and the mud outside, where the woman walked inside of Granny's house, there were footprints on the flooring. 1 human foot and 1 cow foot. 1 human foot and 1 cow foot. It was a Diablesse that had come to visit Granny that night. And if Granny had only given her the baby to hold, she would have disappeared with that baby like that. And I wouldn't be here. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.